But those are just the sweet moments when I have a difficulty and I don't let the difficulty fool my judgment, or take over. Because that is just superhuman. That's what we do. It gives me an appreciation that I didn't let that take over.
Off gassing.
A scuba podcast
With host Simon Bailey. Being a good diver is more than just having skills in the water. An individual who creates opportunities, seeks to improve, lifts those around them, and never stops learning are key ingredients that lead to becoming a great diver. In turn, this will create successful, safe dives, cohesive teams, and enjoyable moments. In this Takeover episode, Simon Bailey sits down with Emma Barrow to speak about the amazing diving in Finland, underwater archaeology, the importance of good communication, the positive side of fear, not taking things for granted, and much more. Please enjoy.
Ooh, it's exciting. Now it's going. Good morning, Emma. It's lovely to have you here.
Good morning, Simon and everyone.
So, you're in Finland right now, right?
I'm in Finland.
Whereabouts are you?
I'm in the capital area, so in the south, by the Baltic Sea.
Okay.
So that's a brilliant location to be in, if I may say so.
So, do you actually live in Helsinki or outside of Helsinki then?
Outside, yeah, a little bit outside.
Nice.
But very close. Yeah, I can cycle to the city center if I wish.
Oh, that's nice. I mean,
Yeah,
I've never been to Helsinki, but
it's rather small.
Yeah.
Only 1 million inhabitants in the bigger metropolitan area, so you can't even call that a metropolis.
Well, the village I live in has got 150 people in it, so 1 million people isn't small for me.
Yeah, well, for a capital, I would say European capital, that might be small. But anyway,
Yeah.
That's where I am. And what I'm interested is the water areas around.
Cool. So let's get this started. With Nick always brings up the first question as how did you get into scuba diving? What was your first dive like? What was the first breath underwater? And why did you stick with it?
All good questions. I actually started intentionally scuba diving on holiday in Thailand. I had just had my first kid with my husband, and my husband told me, really, I remember him so clearly saying, he said, do you really understand how beautiful waters we are on right now? And you must go diving. And I was a little bit hesitating, like, okay, well, why not? And then I booked a day for myself and I fell in love immediately. I can't remember the first breath I took because I was maybe so excited and nervous and, clear water. We were jumping out of a boat I had one instructor for myself. It was the tri dive. And I was just so mesmerized that I can't remember the bubbles. But I remember the first time. Then it took me 4 years because we had 2 kids in between. So it took me 4 years and 2 years, but 4 different tri dives for me to really do the initial basic open water dive course in Finland. Mm-hmm. And then when we were in the pool, I remember my first breaths or the first bubbles, head going below the surface at the pool, and I was like, can I really breathe? But until then, it had been just like flying, in water, blue turquoise water, because I had always done my tri dives in a tropical location or somewhere warm, Thailand or Greece or somewhere, nice. So it felt different when I was at the pool. And the pool, my open water course was in, how do I have to think? It was my tri dive was in February 2015. So the open water course must have been spring 2017.
So all of the open water dives were then in Finland, in the Baltic? or in
They were
lakes?
my course was in Finland. The open water course was in Finland, and we did the open water training at the sea. And that was in summer. Of course, I remember the sea was very cold because the water takes time to warm up. What would I say if the water was for our open water session? Maybe it was 15 degrees. Maybe not even. No, that's a lot actually. That's the end of summer temperature. So maybe it was 10 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So we were fully in dry suit already since the very first dip to the Finnish waters. And
Okay.
that's actually, yes, that's what I haven't been regretting actually since the open water course was immediately with dry suits. I think if I was in a wetsuit in Finnish waters, I might have not continued. It's so brutally cold.
Yeah, when I was in Holland doing fundies in October, there was a diving school there at the same time, and they were doing like open water course with a group of kids, and these kids. I mean, the weather was really atrocious. It was 15 degrees in the water, and these kids, they all had wetsuits on, no gloves, no hoods, and I
Wow.
mean, I don't know that they will have enjoyed that, or I
Yeah.
can't imagine they will have enjoyed it because it was cold enough in a dry suit. So
Yes.
cool that you started off in a dry suit. So what happened?
That was brilliant. I didn't know, I didn't understand the meaning immediately, but as being now an instructor myself as well, since
Yeah,
all those years have passed, I see the difference and I can feel the difference, well, in my bones, because I don't like cold water.
yeah.
So
But most of your diving is cold water, right?
it's absolutely cold water. Yes, very cold.
So after your open water, what happened next, or what came next?
I actually, I took, without knowing, I took a good decision to take part in a 1 week camp. So I had, how many? I might have had only 4 open water dives under my belt, and I took immediately part to a camp, which was 1 week long, also in Finland. And so during that 1 week, it was very intensive because every day you did 2 dives, or, well, we can all do how many we want. I mean, from 1 to 2, but it was, let's say, it was 2 dives per day between 7 days or 5 what days. I can't remember anymore, but that was brilliant because I got practice, and
Hmm.
people were a little bit more experienced than I was, and they could, give me nice feedback like, hey, you're doing good, or do this the next time, do this a little bit differently, or so that was a good kickstart. And since then, I could say basically my years have been between 100 dives a year, something like that. So a
Hmm.
lot of practicing.
Okay. So what did you do then? Like the typical PADI path, so advanced open water rescue, and then dive master instructor, or what was your pathway after that?
Well, it was a little bit mix, and since, well, I did the open water quite fast. That was in Thailand again because we went on a family trip, and I wanted to take part on those 30-meter dives.
Hmm.
So on a holiday, I took a PADI advanced course, but I redid the advanced course in Finland when I came back. Maybe that was the next summer, because I knew that that was the CMAS, so the French originating
Hmm.
course structure, and I knew that the structure of that course was a little bit more than what PADI open water course did.
Hmm.
So I did the course again. So the CMAS, it was then 2-star. I think it's today 2-star diver.
Hmm.
I did that as well in Finland, and that gave me more content and even more practice and instructors all the time, following my progress though. So that was very motivating. And then I got to meet my Finnish future dive buddies, because
Hmm.
that's how on courses you get to meet those people who will be training on the same level as you are. So
Hmm.
that was highly motivating, and that's how I got to meet many my dive buddies that I dive still today. And I think for me, the entire time, important has been that I can practice what I love where I live. So, I think my gills would try if I would if every year I would need to wait for a holiday or to go somewhere or to fly somewhere. And this is when I said that I live by the Baltic Sea, that I'm really, really fortunate. The conditions are totally different, and we don't have turtles or octopus or, those beautiful colors or even clear water, but I really love that I can do it right here where I live.
Yeah, that's always a bonus. I see it with my brother as well. He's a qualified diver. I think he's up to rescue level, but his wife doesn't dive, and he lives in Austria. He has been diving in Austria a few times, but not much. So he was always diving on holiday, but then because his wife doesn't dive and they now have a family, he doesn't dive anymore, which is a shame.
I understand that so well.
Yeah.
I understand that so well, yes. And I know how lucky I am in the way that I have been always encouraged to dive and the opportunity. But how can I say? Maybe I just have to say that my husband is a true gem, because he has been supporting and giving me the opportunity to leave. And sometimes it means that I'm away 1 week and we still have those kids and we are still married. So I'm very lucky.
Dive?
No, he doesn't. He has tried, but he always claims that his ears are hurting.
Okay.
And if we are on a nice holiday like in Bali or Thailand, he will do a try dive with me. With an instructor, and I can do, my dive there as well, but he will join me for 1 day, for example.
Well, that's actually quite cool that it works like that.
That's nice. Yeah. So it has been a nice time, and that has been a way also to share the passion with him. And I've put my kids also on snorkeling courses in Finland, so I've tried my brainwashing and introducing snorkeling and diving to my kids as well, or to our kids.
And are they potentially interested?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. That would be cool.
Yeah, hope so. I don't put any pressure, but since they like it, I like it, and that's enough for me.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before that you're an instructor. So how did you get from CMAS 2-star to being an instructor? There was probably a lot of different things between them.
A lot of things have happened. So many years have passed, and I think I might have done 1 course per year, 1 new course. But as I said, I've always done approximately 100 dives per year. So that already is a lot. And the courses have been a natural kind of process in between. I know that in time-wise, it has been in a very short amount of time. I've done a lot of courses. But I just have felt that they have been like a normal continuation of the eagerness that I have for this sport. So everything comes from the will to learn more and to know more. So I did my rescue course, I did my 3-star diver, so the advanced, how do you say? Maybe it's dive master in PADI, but the advanced course.
Yeah, is that the one you did earlier this year? You did a CMAS course earlier this year. Was that the CMAS? Was that the 3-star or the 4-star?
That was actually my 2nd level of instructor training this year that I did. But if I follow the path that I did, so my open water course, then I did 2 advanced open water courses. One was the PADI and the other one was the CMAS. And then my path has followed the CMAS standards, rescue, the P3, and then I did GUE fundamentals, and then I did GUE Tech 1 with open circuit. And somewhere in between were my overhead training. I forgot actually to mention the ice diver course, which was the first kind of introduction to overhead. Since when we have the 4 seasons fully also in water, that the sea is frozen and the lakes are frozen in winter, and many months actually, if the winter is harsh. But that's why the ice diving course could allow you to stay underwater even when the sea and lakes are frozen, and that is brilliant. That's actually something really mesmerizing because the bubbles on the icy roof they capture your attention, and you could just stay and look at that. Water is just totally freezing there, but
Yeah, I've been ice diving
it's
once. It
beautiful.
was absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
The light is fantastic because
it
it's just
is.
it gets filtered through the ice and the snow, and it just gives that sort of it's that amazing light that you get under the ice. It's really cool.
It's a real new universe, actually. Yes, and
Yeah.
the fish are very sleepy.
Hmm.
They are just laying on the bottom, not doing anything, and even you with your bubbles and open circuit, you might come quite close and they don't react.
Hmm.
That is really a new universe. And so that was all about. We came here from the different courses, but then I did, some GUE diving. I really loved that because I'm quite meticulous person, so I
Hmm.
really like the mindset of training as a team and not anymore as an individual. Not that I criticize other training, but just the difference. If I want to emphasize something good from the training, different training programs, the good in GUE was that the mindset was immediately team and positioning, and it was quite painting you a broader picture than just
Hmm.
you as an individual diver. So that's what I really loved. And then, as I said, there were some. Then I started the overhead training, which meant actually the first step was this ice diving course. Then, of course, cavern, and then mine training, because we do have in Finland a lot of mines and zero natural caves.
Okay.
So mines were then the easy path to try overhead diving as we think of overhead.
Hmm.
It's inside a rock or stone or something like that.
So I want to become a cave diver at some point, but I've had
Hmm,
this question before: is why do you want to go into the caves? Why do
that
you
is
want
a
to
good
go into
question.
overhead ones? So
Yeah.
why do you want to go into caves?
Yes, I have a natural response to this because we have so long season of everything being frozen, and when everything is frozen, I understand that the rope as an ice diver is 20 meters maximum.
Hmm.
So in 20 meters you just have a small circle of what you can see, and then the mine and cave protocols will allow you to be fully functional also under the ice, which is, of course, in the open pit. When you go to a mine, there is often
Hmm.
an open pit, which will have an ice cover in winter. But then you have the mine tunnels, which give you a history as well, because mines have been man-made, and there often is, I don't know often, but there you might see human handprints, the carvings on the walls, maybe the tools that they have been using, the techniques they have been using. So it's a new universe. And I got into that because I noticed that, well, my favorite dive spot, which is the sea, is frozen for, I don't say half the time, but full, quite a long period. So I wanted to extend my diving also in winter. And then the mines, although they are frozen too, but you have a whole new universe there. But you could use the mine diving or cave diving techniques to access those sites. So it felt like a natural prolongation. It wasn't that necessarily that I don't know if I'm saying this correctly. Of course, I was interested also to know, the psychological effects. That does my head take this? Am I capable? It was kind of the diving in many aspects have been discovering my own capabilities, my own fears, my own reactions. It has been really like a wonderful travel inside my head,
Hmm.
drawing boundaries, knowing what I'm capable of, what I like, what I don't like. So, and having friends, having fun while doing it. So it has been amazing, really.
That's cool. I like that. I mean, that
Yeah.
I have seen a meme somewhere that if you go diving, you don't need psychotherapy, or maybe you need therapy because you go diving.
Yeah, yeah. Or
But
maybe you discover how distorted person you are when you do
yeah,
this diving. It's because it's quite extreme, and you have to have confidence in what you do. Of course, the confidence comes with training, so I really emphasize with everything that train, 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 do a lot, because of course the mistakes will, we all just make mistakes, and that's something I cannot say enough. And when we start with, humble steps, then we get to make, I don't say humble mistakes, but the mistakes will be at the level of your diving. And the more you practice, the more you will get assurance that, hey, I can do this, I can take up my backup light and I can handle it. If maybe the headlight will break, and that's I don't say that's an easy mistake, but that's something when you don't have to think of the diving itself anymore. When things became automated in your actions, your breathing is very calm and your fin working is precise, or you can manage your body, your position, your light communication and things like that, then having those little problems will not get overwhelmed, or being maybe half a kilo, 1 kilo overweight, which is something every diver I think should really each time consider, especially when they have a pause from diving or they change an equipment. I think being overweight is such a classical thing that divers often have, and overweight will just bring more problems.
I actually noticed that last weekend.
Tell me about it.
I've done, in the last few months, I've done about 25, 30 twin set dives.
Yeah.
And then on a dive with a friend last weekend, he doesn't use much air. I use a little bit more air than that. So I took a stage with me just as a range extender, but I didn't remove any weight. So I just had my normal 4 kilos that I have with the twin set. And then I had the stage on there as well. And I was fighting with my buoyancy to begin with, because it was definitely overweight. And when we stopped to do some exercise on a platform, I took the stage off, and then everything became a lot easier. And it wasn't because the stage was there, because it wasn't in the way. It was just the extra weight was just sort of putting me off balance. It was,
and that again is something we as divers, or you as diver, we as divers, we need to consider that. And if you could even think about if you would have needed to use the stage, then again the weight had been different, because the amount of air inside or the gas inside, I don't know, you might have had a heavy gas inside, a lot of maybe oxygen inside.
It was nitrox 50. So it was,
yes, exactly. So quite
stage.
Heavy gas. Yeah, it is. Oxygen is very heavy.
So I mean, it would have been. I think I used it at the beginning before we dropped into the deeps. So that would, and then I didn't need to use it again, but so I only took about 30 bar out of it. But if I'd breathed it, if I'd used a lot of it, then it would have become more buoyant, and then I might have been underweight. And it's practice.
Yes, practice, and of course also having discussions with friends or with colleagues, or how do you say, dive buddies. Discussion is always something that will broaden your thinking or your experiences, and having these kind of discussions, I think that's what is fruitful.
Yeah.
Because that's how we start thinking that, hey, that's a good idea. Oh, wow, you do it this way. Oh, that's a thought.
Yeah, I actually like that. I always like to, so if I'm diving with more experienced people, I like to sort of see how they're doing things.
Absolutely.
And if they're doing something differently to how I'm doing it, I might ask why they're doing that.
Yeah.
Why they're doing it that way.
Yeah.
And if I've been taught differently, like the classic example actually it's a really interesting one, is my inflator hose on my wing. I put the hose through the rubber ring. So I put the inflator hose, the LPI hose, but the corrugated hose stays outside of it.
Okay.
That's something that the dive master, when I first started using my wing, that was something that the dive master in the Faroes showed me. And it works so much better for me because the rubber ring gets trapped in the corrugated hose.
True.
So if you're trying to lift the hose up and down, it gets caught.
Doesn't really want to get lifted, yes.
Yeah, so that works for me, but then other divers, they just put it all together and put the whole thing through the hose, and it works for them. So it's just, it's an interesting one, that one.
and maybe just trying what suits you best is
Yeah.
is a good solution. And in this way, I think that the trying new techniques or new styles should maybe be in an environment where you're comfortable, that don't go to the caves and do, to try stuff.
Yeah.
Do it somewhere, shallow or at the end of the dive or somewhere you feel comfortable.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a thing. Only change one thing at a time.
Yes. Only
Don't.
try one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's always a good one.
I have a question for you, Simon, because you said
Go on
that
then.
you like to see how other people are doing their stuff. Do you
Yeah.
notice that you learn from watching other people, or do you notice that you learn from reading, or how do you educate yourself?
That's actually a good question. I think watching how other people do things
Yeah.
is sort of just observation is always a good one. But then actually asking people why they're doing things that way, or if I'm doing something differently and I don't think it's working, ask them what could I be doing better. But also, I read an awful lot. I hate instruction videos. I really hate instructional videos. Sometimes you can't get around them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do need a video to show you something, but I prefer reading things. But then trying it, and then sort of reading the steps, and then trying to internalize it, and then actually trying that myself. And then if it's not working, think about why it's not working. And if I really can't work out why it's not working, ask somebody else who I know can do it, saying, "Look,
Yeah, I think.
I've been trying this, but it's not working. Why isn't this working?" So, yeah, I mean I'm also a powerboat instructor, and when teaching people to drive boats, best way to do it is to let them do it. So you demonstrate how, like, coming alongside a pontoon it can be really difficult. It can be really easy
Yeah.
depending on the conditions, but there's a couple of steps that are the same. It doesn't matter which way you're doing it or what the weather's doing, but trying to explain that to someone, okay, you approach the pontoon about 30 to 45 degrees, then you sort of slowly, what is slowly? Slowly is
Yes.
something that you can only feel once you
Yeah.
know how the boat works.
Yeah.
So it's, okay, this is how you do it, and then you go and let the people do it themselves. And
Yeah,
then
that's a
they
good
will,
way.
and it's like what you said before about failing at the level of your skills. That's
Exactly.
sort of, that is actually how I like to instruct when I'm
Yeah.
teaching people to drive boats. It's basically, you don't set them up for failure, but you put them into situations where they might fail, but also situations where if they do fail, they can cope with that failure.
Absolutely.
And
Without having to stress, the end of the world or.
yeah,
Absolutely. That's really brilliant.
so I liked your explanation before that when you're doing new things, as your skill level progresses, you sort of add failure at your skill level to the mix. I like that one. I'm going to take that and steal it.
Thank you. Nice. You can steal it. That's a
Yeah.
happy thing. And when I wanted to ask you about how do you learn, because I have noticed personal experience that, for example, in a course, let's imagine we are 2 or 3 students, so rather small course. I always wish that the teacher, of course, he will tell us what to do. He might demonstrate us the skill, and then he or she will ask, well, now it's your turn to do it. And I always wish that someone else, some other student, will do the skill first, so I have time to observe how they do it. And that, is a
Yeah.
stress releaser for me, because I have another example to show me once more. I've understood that I learn from watching.
Yeah.
And
But I always feel bad if you've got 3 students that want to see somebody else do it first, then you've always got a problem. So, I mean, if I'm in a learning environment, I don't mind failing. So the instructor will demonstrate something, and then, yes, I would like to see someone else do it, but if nobody else is going to do it first, then I don't mind being the first one to do it.
yeah,
Because I've seen the
absolutely.
instructor do it, and I may be confident that I can do it, and then I will completely mess it up. But that is a
Then
learning
we'll do it
experience for
again.
me as well. And then I watch how the other people do it, and then, that's what I was doing wrong. And so it's, yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's different ways of learning.
Yeah, and actually, which is something I've been thinking recently, that the more you progress in diving, the less courses there will be, and the less you get this kind of observation, doing, and feedback situations like in courses. So I've started really thinking recently that I would love to have a mentor who would be there, some really experienced diver who could be there and maybe do this kind of, let's say it's an intellectual work where you have feedback and receive feedback, but it is often based on the other person's experience and his observations or her observations on your diving.
Yeah.
I don't mean that I wish to be under, someone is breathing on my neck all the time, but I really wouldn't mind that kind of a situation.
Yeah. I mean, I play trombone, and I had lessons for a long time, but I haven't had lessons now for about 10, 15 years. But one of my old teachers, he's the solo trombonist in an orchestra. He's professor at conservatory. Amazing guy, absolutely amazing trombone player. And he says every year he goes and has lessons.
Yes.
He basically
really love that.
He goes and finds someone who he respects and basically just pays them for a couple of hours for a lesson.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Because once you get to a certain level, there aren't that many people that are at a higher level, but it's always good to be able to sort of sit down with those people, like you say, have someone who could mentor you or just do like a masterclass, sort of say, you're doing this well, but you might want to think about tweaking that.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, that's a good idea. You have interesting hobbies, speedboat and trombone and all that. That's amazing.
and diving.
And diving.
Diving.
And podcasting.
Yeah. No, I'm just stealing Nick's podcast.
Thank you, Nick, for renting it out to you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Nick, for letting us do this. It's quite cool. So just to get back to your journey, so you said you became an instructor. Are you just an open water instructor, or are you cave and cavern as well?
I don't do yet cave and cavern. I think I have a lot to learn on that path still, as my personal journey should continue there. But I just completed, it is a 3-step instructor journey, where the first level I've done right before COVID, and now I did my second level of instructor training. It was this year. So it was actually my this year's course. And I really love instructor training in that sense, that adds to your psychological knowledge, like how people learn, how can you motivate, how can you cope with certain situations. So I'm the more I've been diving, the more I've been interested in psychology, and I think it goes a little bit hand in hand. I found that really fascinating. How people make decisions, what things influence those, and I've noticed the more that I've been having courses, the more I notice that people speak about awareness, but nowhere that is taught. What is awareness? How can you train your awareness? So all these kind of mental practices have just been yet another universe to the diving. So this has been a lot more than just water and friends for me. It has been a lot of digging into historical wrecks, into the history of mines, into shipbuilding or construction or mine excavating strategies. So it has been really fascinating. The more you get interest, the more you will find subjects to learn or topics to learn from. And I'm just thinking that where does it end? I hope it never ends. There will be another universe waiting to be discovered.
Once you get bored of the mines in Sweden, then there's mines other places that use different techniques and have different types of rock and different geology.
And I believe that people do first very logical and kind of common step is photography or videography. And that is, again, something that I haven't put my mind so much into it. I know I do a lot of kind of vlogging, maybe that's how you can call the Instagram stories and posts, but it's not that I have been as fascinated as some of my friends about the technical aspects of video and photography. So maybe that will come later.
In one of my previous lives, I used to be a photographer.
Another interesting point.
Yeah. And actually, last year before I started diving, I managed to get a good deal on a housing.
Beautiful.
But I've had it underwater twice, and actually saw on Instagram on the SSI channel today. I saw there was a link to "Are you ready to take a camera underwater?" I didn't even bother clicking on the link because the answer is no. my diving is nowhere near good enough that I could take a camera underwater right now. So it's at the moment it's still gathering dust, but it will maybe next year I'll take it underwater. But yeah, I totally understand that. I mean, photography underwater, it's a really tricky one. I'll take a GoPro and take some videos. That's
Exactly.
That's
Yeah. Slow steps, small steps, and I really like your attitude that you said that not yet, or maybe next year, or maybe you'll do some buoyancy testing at the pool. How if you need to balance the rig. And all that
it definitely
kind of
needs balancing. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I'd just like to ask you about instructing actually, because
Yes.
I mean, one of my steps for next year will be to become an instructor as well.
Beautiful.
But from teaching powerboating, from teaching sailing to kids in previous lives as well, I've always found that through teaching, you get better yourself. Do you find that?
Yeah, that is true, because you basically you get back to the basics, or you have to think about as well, how do you say, how do you explain? Sometimes you can explain very complicated things in a complicated way, but how do you explain them in an understandable way? The fun idea of instructing is that when you are a basic level instructor, you get to teach the first class someone will ever take on their scuba diving journey. And isn't it funny that the least experienced instructor gets to do the most actually challenging course, because you have to be very mindful of what you teach and how do you teach it, because that will be the basis of the person for their entire diving.
I've never thought of it that way, but I mean,
Yeah.
all of my instructors, they were very, very experienced guys when I started to learn to dive. So, I mean,
I
these
have
are
had
all...
that luck as well, but I've had just this thought that when I started my instructor training, I wasn't experienced instructor, so yet I got my first course of students for myself. And of course they said that it was a great course, they were excited, but it just gives you another, being an instructor, you evaluate what you do, because that is what you have to do. You have another level of responsibility, because you're responsible for yourself. Mostly you are responsible of the divers who just don't know the risks they might be taking, or they just discover the sport. So that's why it has been a really interesting psychological journey to be an instructor.
Totally understand that. I mean, I have been thinking, okay, if I become an instructor, when I become an instructor, I would have to start teaching. And I mean, some of the things that is, I mean, yes, it is scary that you're the first person or you're the person that's introducing these people to the underwater world. It's a privilege as well, but
It is.
yes, you can mess it up. But I think one of the problems I have in my head right now is that I know from teaching other things is that everybody learns differently, and some people need a lot more explanation. And I'm just wondering, in the underwater environment, I mean, if you and I were diving together, we've got a common set of hand signals, and we could probably work out what the other person is trying to say. But with an absolute beginner, if you're trying to communicate with them, but then that communication's not working, how do you handle that situation? Just out of interest.
That's a good question, but before we kind of go to overthinking, that's not what I want to say that you are doing, but before we start to kind of traumatize the situations, we can always reassure that, hey, we are in a 2-meter, 3-meter, 5-meter pool with those students, so it's okay not to forget to explain to your students that this is that hand sign and that is this kind of hand sign, because we are nervous too, and we are, as instructors, we are as well learning. And I have actually, similarly as I say to my dive buddies when I dive my personal dives, if I'm nervous, I tell them that, hey, today I feel nervous, or this dive is challenging and I feel nervous. But I might say that as well to my students. When I did my very first course, I told them that, hey, this is my very first course, that I'm as excited as you are, and this is a learning journey for all of us. And that's it. I didn't have to say to them that I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I didn't need to show my insecurity. But I just told them very honestly that, hey, today we are all doing something that is new to us, that let's enjoy. And it went super well. And not to forget to say that all the courses are so standardized today, and all the platforms or the teaching systems, PADI, SSI, GUE, they have either e-learning systems or then the books with courses, the more traditional way. But it's not everything is on your shoulders, or not all the responsibilities on your shoulders as an instructor. So the students have also the responsibility to learn and read the material and go through the teaching videos or reading the book. So that is also good to keep in mind.
Yeah. Okay, that is good to know as well, I suppose.
But as you asked about the communication underwater, that is something that is actually very complicated. And even, isn't it funny what situations arise when you think that I want to communicate this, and the other person sees your hand signs and thinks totally different thing. So you come up to the surface and...
I actually had that this weekend.
Yeah.
The guy I was diving with, he's doing his fundies right now, and he wanted to practice some fundie skills. So he started his technical journey a couple of months ago, and we were somewhere down at 17 meters, and I just used the one hand signal for pressure, just to sort of ask what his pressure was. So it was basically that one, and he sort of didn't really understand what I was saying. So I just did it again, and then he swam over to me because he thought I was saying "come here."
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
And then
I actually didn't know that sign either.
Oh, it's in the SSI
that.
materials. So it's basically the pressure sign.
Huh.
So the one-handed pressure sign, because I had a torch in my other hand. So
Yeah.
I then used the two-handed one, and then he understood what I was saying. But yeah, it's a funny one.
Yes, good example how things get miscommunication underwater.
In June, I was diving on the Faroes with Bowie, and it was fairly low visibility. We had scooters out, and we were going into a cave and go through a kelp bed, and then at some point he stopped and then started making wild signals at me, and I thought, what is wrong with him? I just couldn't understand that he kept making the same signals, and it was, I don't know what you're saying, until he got his wet note out and said, did you see that big massive seal? No, I didn't. But he was right. I mean, that's what wet notes are really good for.
It is. Yeah.
yeah,
But when you say that someone shows you wild signs, you think immediately that, hey, there's a problem. But actually, he was saying that, hey, that's an amazing thing. Did you see it?
Yeah, it was. And I could just see him getting frustrated that I couldn't understand what he was trying to ask me. And it was a funny situation. That
Absolutely. I think we've all been there.
So you mentioned before that, I mean, diving gives you an opportunity to like branch out into loads of other things like history, geology, industrial techniques, boat building,
Absolutely.
all that stuff. So I've seen from your Instagram, and you've mentioned this before, that you're on a number of committees or you're part of a number of different groups. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That has been a passion of mine as well. Well, it has given another meaning as well to the dives that I do. I have been part of board of directors in the dive club where I am at my local dive club. So it means basically that I can have an input on the activities, the actions, the implementing safety procedures, or whatever has been running throughout those years that I've been there as a board member, but also it has been about organizing events or dive camps for the members. So it has given a meaning to my diving as well. It's super nice to know that what you do can influence positively other people. So I have always been very happy to invest my time in those kind of things. And then I have been part of groups that do marine archaeology. Those have been voluntary groups. Oh, then I have, since I got more interest to marine archaeology, and not as an archaeologist, I am not an archaeologist, but I had the interest of willing to learn and knowing what pieces of wreck lie underneath when I'm diving. Finland and the Baltic Sea is just loaded with wrecks, even hundreds of years old wrecks, because the water conditions in the Baltic Sea are phenomenal in preserving old wrecks. So you might just arrive to a dive site and everything is there. It looks like it was sailing yesterday. So it is absolutely gorgeous to see those kind of things, those wrecks, and that sparked the interest of as well knowing more and learning more and wishing to contribute as well. So I have actively been searching to be part of those either voluntary teams, or then I did even training to become a scientific diver, occupational scientific diver, and that as well as those years of volunteering on those voluntary projects also got me to do jobs in marine archaeology as being a support diver, or what was my title? I had a really nice title. It was not a scientific diver, but I might have been a scientific diver. And it can become a source of revenue as well. So this is, I think, how could I say, your interest, your curiosity is a powerful tool. And if you really want to use it, there are no limits. That's what I wish really to encourage people, that if you get the spark, don't let anyone stop you. Just, take the advantage of it might come slowly, but I mean, the results might come slowly, or then you just pick up the phone and call someone that, hey, would you need a diver in your team? I can do this, or I'm qualified at that. And then they say either yes or no. So the worst thing can happen is that someone says no, and then that's okay.
Yeah.
You try another group, or you call someone else, or you practice more. So I think that just keep the curiosity and don't let your ego get too big or something like this. So that has been my path on those. And I think the biggest reward, of course, is to learn more. That's what I get really enthusiastic about when I listen to experts, when they explain what pieces of wreck we are looking at, or how can we study those, or how the wood has been carved, or sometimes we got to lift objects from the seabed for various reasons. For often they have to be conserved, and sometimes the archaeologists who study those pieces have been immediately recognizing that, oh, this glassware comes from that or that period, or this looks like it could belong to that kind of period, and then further investigation might lead into more details about the object. But it is just fantastic to see people working, and you get to share a piece of their experience, or you get to witness their passion, of course, to what they do. So it has just been, maybe this sounds too, rosy and too sweet to be true, but I think it's just how you see things, that if you get excited of other people's talents or other people's experience, you kind of get part of what they have.
I like
Does
that.
it make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I always respect people who have got a passion for something. And I have passion for a lot of things as well, and I've
already heard it. Yeah.
I always try very hard not to inflict that on other people, but because of that, I'm always willing to listen to other people's passions and to sort of take some of their excitement. And so, yeah, I like that one.
Thank you.
You also mentioned a while back that you were involved in the committee that helped to get Oyamo open again?
I don't know,
Can you talk
was
about
I?
that or not?
Yeah, I would love to hear that I did some influencing, but I wasn't part of that in a sense. I just shared on my Facebook and my Instagram what they had been
Ah,
doing. So I was maybe
okay.
their voice. Yeah, I was maybe their voice because there was, well, it's a long story, but there was a lot of things, very important things that were happening in the Oyama mine process. They were maybe not communicated outside of the group where the work was done. So I thought that, hey, let's spread this because it was, again, it was their passion to keep the mine open for everyone. And I just thought that that's really what is in my values as well, that everyone can join, everyone has the opportunity to practice, and it is very local, so it's very close to many people. It is worldwide renowned, so why to limit such a space, really beautiful place, to a small community? And when the values of the group who were working for opening it for everyone were aligned with my values, then I just
Hmm.
thought that this is what I want to share to others. So it's nice that you had thought that I was part of it, but I was just sharing what they do.
I still think it was very important to share that because I mean, Oyama, it's sort of like been on my bucket list for a number of years.
Hmm.
It's going to be a while before I can get there
Hmm.
because there's a lot of qualifications I need before I can do it. It's somewhere I do want to go. So when I heard it
Yeah,
was closed, it was a bit disappointing. But then
yeah.
I sort of saw that you were pushing the process that it was going to be open again. Sort of,
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's really cool that it is open again.
It is, yeah, and there is this gratitude that I have because I think that I have a like a golden spoon in my mouth. I have the Baltic Sea with those magnificent wrecks right at my backyard. Ojamo is almost at my backyard. Some other mines are very close to me, so really that makes me I'm the lucky one that I have all this at my back step, at my back door, so I don't need to do that effort of going somewhere, traveling far only once a year. That's I'm really humble and I really appreciate that I have all this very close by. And when something is kind of taken away, and it's not just something that is away from myself, but it was away from many other people. It is nice to be able to kind of give back and try to make it happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Similar way, and similar way as I have always looked for more training when I knew that now I want to go diving. I want to dive year around. I looked for training to dive in wintry conditions, and that's how it's. I think it's the mindset that when something is not available to you, you first see if there is a way to do it, and you dig into it. It's nothing really special. It's just that when I see an opportunity, I do a lot of work to make it happen.
I respect that. That's really good. So
Thank you.
I know recently you had an injury with your finger, and one of the
Mm.
things I mean, I feel really bad that you broke your finger, but one of the things I actually really like that came out of that was that you put a lot of introspective stuff out on Instagram.
Yes, so it was funny. I was gardening and a stupid accident happened and I broke a fingertip. Okay, you can think that fingers are very important tools for human. You touch, you feel, you comb your hair, you wash your hair. Fingers are super sensitive, and that's why, a small accident, it's almost like I went to the ER then, and as I felt a lot of pain, and I was almost, humbled and sorry that it felt to me like I was there with a broken nail, that, hey, doctor, sorry, my finger is hurting. But, the more time went by, the more I understood how really basic things this finger reminded me of, that how things are complicated if you have trouble in your life. And for me, well, it was just this broken finger, but it was really, how do you say it? It describes a lot of things, a lot of big things in your life, that when you have pain, you try to avoid the pain, or when you have pain, it becomes the center of your universe. So this is how we react. And I felt like when I had this small injury in my finger, it became the center of my days. It became everything I thought of. So this is that's why it kind of put me back to roots. That people with difficulties, there are a lot of things that I take for granted. As I said, the water, I just live by the water. I could take it for granted. I take for granted that my fingers are operational, that they work without pain or without difficulties. And once you are hit by a difficulty, you kind of get back to your, how do you say, you are rooted immediately.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of gratitude. There's a lot of effort that you have to do to get the thing working again. So it was kind of philosophical journey for me, and I was lucky enough that I didn't break anything more complicated, that the healing process doesn't take years, or that I'm not a violin player or something like that where I would use the finger as work or something like this. But I think that was a good reminder for me that, hey, things are, how do you say, that just remember basic things and be grateful for what you have. So I think the finger is getting now back to normal, but it has as well, it kind of drew me back. I just took a step back from my, busy life, and the way of taking one step back puts you into more perspective of looking things what are really important. Isn't it funny that just one middle finger will teach you all that?
Yeah. Probably more so than if you've broken your leg, because you've broken your leg, and that will heal itself. But like you say, you take your fingers for granted.
Absolutely, many things we take so many things for granted. Human relationships, work, your status. We take our living conditions very well. That is so human. So I can't say that anyone else or I would be stupid. It's just that when things go well, you don't see anything else than your well-being, your pursuit, your passions. Everything is just rolling, and you forget the gratitude of very simple things. So this was something that brought me to my roots and brought a lot of appreciation to anything that we do daily, really daily things.
Cool.
So it was cool. Something very painful can become very learning experience.
I really respect that you took this hardship, hardship for you, compared to what other people are going through, maybe not so much, but definitely hardship. And I think what I really like is that you took that and you took it as an opportunity to go back to basics and sort of reflect on everything. And I really like that you shared that as well. So I enjoyed following that journey.
Thank you, Simon, because I just think that we forget in a way, but this is again very normal, very human. So I don't say that I'm above something else or someone else, but we forget how people or how ourselves, kind of how fragile we are. So just breaking one finger put me to the perspective that what things are normal. And again, this was, as it was just a finger. I didn't have a heart attack, which could have been, more serious. So this was a way for me to, a little bit laugh about my own stupidity of not understanding what basic things are and the value of those basic things.
Yeah.
So it was an easy way to show something that we all go through, hardships in life. And I didn't, it was an easy way to talk about something that is very normal to us, those difficulties, breaking more valuable human parts, or going through dramatic lifetime, or going through divorce, or losing their job. Or I think our world today is so stressful, so unpredictable, and as long as we don't realize what is super valuable to us, it has been, life is very superficial, kind of the pursuit of all good. And that's not what life is. Life is also about breaking fingers, breaking hearts, breaking legs, or it's also about trouble and coping it. So I think the finger was a good opportunity to remind myself and maybe others about that.
I totally get that. It's sort of like you can't really appreciate the good without the bad.
Yeah, exactly. I always wish that people wouldn't break anything, bad, but that's not the case either.
Just to sort of steer this little bit back to diving, one question I like to ask is, what's your best experience underwater?
Wow, that is a difficult question. I just had shivers down my spine, but I think the best experiences are the ones where I have been, let's say, gently scared, but still knowing that I can handle this, I can cope this. And oftentimes those experiences have been on my, later advanced career.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is I remember so well I was still an open water student. I was diving in Portugal, so in really nice warm waters, and I was overweighted. So much overweighted that I barely could get up when everyone showed the thumbs up that let's go, let's end the dive. I barely could get up, and I almost got out of breath because I tried kicking my way up, and that means that I lost the reflex of did try to inflate, but maybe not enough. But anyway, that was a bad experience, and I was scared underwater. But now I have understood, the more I've advanced in my career, the more I've started to enjoy moments when I'm a bit scared, but I know I can handle it. I don't know if that makes sense. It might mean that when you are diving on a wreck and you drop the buoy line on the water, because the sonar of your boat will locate the wreck, and then you drop the ascent line to the water, and then from the ascent line you have to put a reel to the ascent line and start searching for the wreck. And that can be, in the Baltic Sea, very poor visibility. In my diving it's often great depth, below 40 maybe. It is not that you are necessarily narcotic, because I do use helium in my dive gases. It is rather the feeling of being totally alone. The bottom has often little or no reference at all. It's very muddy and very silty, so you are in this kind of green, grey, very dark water, and you get so easily disoriented. So to me it is a kind of personal victory that I don't get nervous thoughts. I do get nervous thoughts, but I handle them. So I know they are just thoughts in my head, and I do not need to kind of emphasize the horror thinking. So that's something that I enjoy nowadays, that I keep calm. And still, sometimes we locate the wreck. Sometimes there have been times that we don't locate the wreck, and that is a disappointment. And that is also something that you have to handle in diving. A lot of disappointments happen, and it's maturity and growth to handle those difficulties in an adult way, not to get pissed off or yell at your friends or start blaming yourself. All those are ways how you can spoil the experience from it. Then you learn. You just didn't find the wreck this time, but next time you have learned now that next time you will do it differently. Isn't it funny how I'm sometimes driven by this adversity?
Yeah, I get the same sometimes as well. It's just, I think it's always nice that on reflection that you sort of, okay, there was this situation that happened, and on reflection, actually I handled that really well. And if I think back to maybe a year ago, I wouldn't have been able to handle that. And it's just sort of being able, I always like looking back and sort of like seeing my own growth.
Absolutely.
Or seeing the growth of people that I'm diving with, where they start getting better and start improving their skills. So that's always good.
Yes, and it doesn't happen as well without you really noticing or paying attention. So it is the kind of the mindful game of this sport that you have to pay attention to notice those things. And I don't mean that I put myself necessarily into difficult situations. That's not at all what I'm saying here. I'm actually a very conservative diver. But those are just the sweet moments when I have a difficulty and I don't let the difficulty fool my judgment, or take over. Because that is just superhuman. That's what we do. It gives me again, an appreciation that I didn't let that take over.
Yeah, and that you have the strength to be able to
Yeah,
cope with it.
yeah.
That's always cool. Another question I like to ask: if you could go anywhere in the world and dive with anybody of your choice, where would you go and who would you take with you?
Oh, I would take someone. I don't want to say names here because they could be. I wish that someone who listens to this might see themselves in what I say, but I would love to take a person who is capable into kind of reflecting on things because as
Hmm.
you've noticed, well, this has been a super nice discussion, but I really enjoy reflecting or having a conversation. But I would go to, I think I would go to Plura in Norway. There's a really beautiful natural cave, and I've wanted to visit for years, and I haven't yet. Maybe another dream would be in Mexico, kind of bucket list dive, Mexican caves.
Both very good places to go, I think.
Mm. But I have to say, it's not that the opportunity has been missing. I just love so much the Finnish waters, what we have around here, the Baltic Sea or the mines. So I have been too good here that I have not wanted to travel. Isn't it funny?
Oh, that's a nice problem to have, actually.
It is. It is. Yeah, well, the bucket list is so long. I would love to see the French caves. I would love to go to Thailand or somewhere warm. Why not the Red
Hmm.
Sea? I haven't seen those bucket list dives. Many people go there. For example, in Egypt. I have many friends now in Egypt, and that would be fun because it's so clear, bright. But I just love the dark and cold waters here.
I get that. I'm going to the Canaries in 2 weeks to
That would be nice.
but I sent them an email the other day with my packing list, and I got an email back saying, "Don't bother bringing your gloves." I didn't know you could dive without gloves. So
It's
okay,
weird concept, yeah.
very
If you
weird
say
concept.
so.
Fine, I won't bring my gloves. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to this. Nick always likes to have a final question, an advice question. If someone were looking to get into underwater archaeology in their local area, what advice would you have to them or for that person?
Yeah, I think the advice would be, oh, who am I to give advices to anyone? But it would be to think maybe, I'm sure that the archaeologists in your local area or your local group need help. What makes the difference is what you can give to them. It means that is it, I don't know if it's your knowledge or if it's your willingness to maybe contribute to those projects as a diver, maybe. Or what is it that I can bring to the other person? Because, of course, their work is highly regulated oftentimes, and it might mean that can they take you there? That is a different question. But how can you contribute? Is it maybe searching for archives? Is it maybe your diving? Is it can you share some of your knowledge? Is it the photography? Or because people are busy today, and if you have something to offer to someone, a skill that maybe they are lacking, then I would say, or I would hope, your chances into getting to something they are doing or participating into projects is higher. And it doesn't mean that you will be necessarily the superstar diver. It might be that you are the deckhand, giving them the bottles that they might need, or you're the one staying in the shore but making sure that their ropes are tidy or, facilitating their work. So I think it's also a good idea to start humble and start low or just ask if they need help and what kind of help and how can you reply to what they tell they need.
It's basically find out what skills or work out what skills you have and what you have to offer,
Yes.
and see if they need them or see what the skills they need and then work on those skills. So,
Where does it meet? And if they say no, for example, a good reason might be that you lack some kind of professional training or whatever rules and regulations they might have that limitates taking volunteers along. Why not forming your own group with your good friends and then starting implementing what you could, how you could learn or seek for training in that matter, because there are a lot of training now offered for example, in just citizen science. So I think the biggest tool again here is your curiosity, your willingness to contribute and to learn. Those are maybe the three most important, because then you will always stay hungry. You always wish to discover more. You always want to see more and maybe help more. This is a little bit difficult topic, as there might be so many interests that might not align. You might wish to contribute and they might be hindered by some kind of regulation or rule, or maybe just money, they can't pay you. All those things are current, and there might be many others who wish to do the same. But I just think that asking honestly, picking up the phone, not many people do that actually today. Pick up the phone and just present yourself. Maybe they say today no, but next year they might say that, hey, I remember you called us many times and we wish to have you here.
Emma, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your time. And I've really enjoyed our chats today. Some fantastic topics. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and just enjoy what we are doing.
Offgassing, a scuba podcast.